Hello everyone, and welcome back to episode 4 of our week-long trip across Iceland. In the last video, we explore so much of the country from the southern coast to various waterfalls and even get our first look at Vatnajökull National Park. Now, if you did watch episode 3, you'll know that we made an impulsive last-minute decision to drive the perimeter of Iceland when originally we were going to stick to the southern part of the country in our 1 week on the island. But in order to facilitate this new plan, we needed to drive 4.5 hours from southern Iceland to eastern Iceland in one stretch in the middle of the day. But first, we did do plenty more things inside Vatnajökull National Park. I introduced Iceland's largest national park in the last episode, and our first impressions were immediately fantastic. We woke up in the Skaftafell campground today and got to watch sunrise over the park's incredible peaks and glaciers. We really wanted to see if there was a way to reach the mouth of one of these glaciers, and indeed there was a trail that leaves from the campground to get to one. But with all the driving that we had planned today, we decided to pass on the 3-mile out and back trail and instead drive a non-paved road to an even more impressive glacier. Fjallsrlun Glacier is really 2 separate glaciers that crawl down into a lagoon where icebergs break off and drift along the surface. This vantage point was absolutely breathtaking, and no video footage I captured gives it any sort of justice. We noticed a few people boating out on the lagoon, and it gives you a little bit more perspective as to how ginormous this glacier was.
To give a little sense of scale, here's the boat. Yeah, use your imagination.
Not many people know of this spot, but it's great to take in for just under a half hour before continuing on the ring road. Another, much more popular glacial lagoon can be found just 15 minutes away, and that's called Jökulsárlón. It shares the same parking lot with the world-famous Diamond Beach, which we'll show you guys in a second. The icebergs in the lagoon were considerably bigger than even the last spot we were at, and many of them would float their way into the ocean before almost boomeranging onto the Diamond Beach itself. An amazing experience we had here was watching seals float their way into the ocean with the icebergs. We saw close to a dozen of them peek their heads out over the lagoon. As if this spot couldn't get any better, we decided to drive across the bridge and park on the other side for the aforementioned Diamond Beach. This strip of black sand is the best place to view the icebergs from the glacial lagoon. You can get right up close to them, and many of them actually do appear like diamond, hence the name. We spent a good half hour walking along the beach, taking in all the colors and watching the waves crash onto the blocks of ice. It's no wonder this place has gotten so much notoriety, as you're hard-pressed to find these huge icebergs on an easy-to-access beach anywhere else in the world. It's the kind of thing that's really only possible because of the sheer size of the Vatnajökull ice sheet and all of the glaciers that snake their way down as a result. Personally, this was my favorite location in Vatnajökull National Park, and I'd highly encourage you to visit. As this was originally going to be the trip's turnaround point, it was now time to knock out the 4.5-hour drive along Iceland's rugged southeastern coastline. It's a stretch of the ring road that doesn't really have anywhere of note to get off at, so I think you're just intended to take in the humongous cliffs right along the water. The atmosphere for this was perfect, as there was these large clouds threading the mountains. We also slowed down at points to get up-close experiences with the Icelandic sheep. Towards the end of the drive, the landscape suddenly got a lot more colorful as green and yellow bushes and trees started to cover the ground. It may have been because it was the fall season, but if you see this in Iceland, definitely see if you can pull off on the ring road. We arrived at our next spot where we'd be spending the rest of our day at. The Vatnajökull were my brother and I's favorite geothermal pools in all of Iceland. It isn't like your traditional hot spring, but is instead a collection of pools heated by geothermal springs located beneath a lake. The setting of these pools right on Ulljavat Lake made this an unbeatable spot experience in our opinion. Vatn baths are especially unique because although Iceland is famous for its geothermal activity, the eastern part of the country is located on a cold spot, making hot springs and pools like this very uncommon. Additionally, the warm water flowing from the ground is so pure that it's the only geothermal water in Iceland certified as drinkable. I also just love the setup of Vatn baths because you essentially have 3 pools, each of which have a different temperature. Then of course you also have the lake for those of you who want to go swimming on a nice summer day. I dared my brother to jump in despite the fact that it was 34 degrees Fahrenheit or 1 degree Celsius outside. He said said it actually wasn't that bad because the water temperature was warmer than the temperature outside. Admission into Vok baths cost 5,990 Icelandic krona or $41 US, and in my opinion, it's an experience that I definitely consider to be worth it. Anyways, that's just gonna about wrap up episode 4 of our trip across Iceland. In the next video, I think you'll all understand why we decided to tack on the additional 9 hours of driving to the trip. From Europe's most powerful waterfall to a canyon made up of basalt columns, stay tuned for more content coming from this amazing Icelandic road trip. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye guys.